You're sitting at your desk. It's 2 p.m. You've been staring at the same screen for 3 hours. Your brain feels like it's dissolving. You check your phone. Nothing new. You check it again. Still nothing. You look at the clock. It's 2:03. 3 minutes. That's it. Here's the thing. For roughly 95% of human history, this moment was impossible. Not because screens didn't exist, because sitting still for 3 hours would have meant you were either injured, sick, or dead. Let's talk about what daily life actually looked like for ancient humans. For about 300,000 years, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. That's not a small chapter of our story. That's the entire book. Agriculture only showed up around 10,000 years ago. That means farming, cities, offices, everything we think of as normal, all of it fits into the last 5 to 10% of human existence. Your brain, your body, your psychology, all of it was built for a completely different world. A world where a boring day wasn't just unpleasant, it was dangerous. Now, we can't go back in time and ask a Pleistocene hunter-gatherer how they felt. We can't measure their subjective experience. That's an important caveat. But we can study modern hunter-gatherer groups who live in ways that parallel ancient lifestyles. And the best studied group for this is the Hadza of Tanzania. Here's what the data shows. GPS tracking of Hadza adults found that men walk an average of about 12.9 kilometers per day. Women walk about 7.6 kilometers. That's roughly 8 miles and 4.7 miles. For context, the average modern urban person walks maybe a third of that. So already the sheer physical movement of daily life was dramatically different. You weren't sitting, you were moving, constantly. But it wasn't aimless wandering. This is where it gets interesting. More than 95% of all out-of-camp travel among the Hadza is driven by 3 things: food, water, and firewood. That's it. Almost every trip away from camp had a purpose. Every walk had a goal. Ancient life wasn't idle, it was goal-directed. You woke up and you had problems to solve. Real problems. Where is the water today? Where did the animals move? Which trees have ripe fruit? Every single day was a new puzzle. And the puzzle was different depending on who you were. Men and women faced distinct but equally demanding challenges. Men tended to range farther from camp, tracking mobile animal prey across larger areas. The targets were unpredictable. Animals move, they hide, they run. Hunting required reading landscapes, interpreting tracks, making decisions under uncertainty. Women typically followed different routes, focusing on gathering plant foods, things that don't run away but still require deep knowledge. Which roots are edible? Which berries are ripe? Which ones will poison you? Both roles demanded constant attention, constant problem-solving, constant engagement. Now here's the part people forget. It wasn't just physical. When Hadza foragers return to camp at the end of the day, they share everything. Not just the food, the information. Detailed accounts of where they went, what they found, what routes they took, what dangers they encountered. Every evening was essentially a debriefing session, a communal download of survival intelligence. This wasn't small talk, this was critical data exchange. Your life might depend on knowing that the water source to the east had dried up, that a predator was spotted near the northern ridge. Camp wasn't just a resting place. It was a knowledge network. And beyond survival, there was culture. We sometimes imagine ancient humans as purely practical creatures, just eating and sleeping and trying not to die. But the archaeological record tells a different story. Rock art found in Sulawesi has been dated to at least 67,800 years ago. Ancient humans were painting on cave walls, creating ornaments, expressing something beyond mere survival. They had rich inner lives. They had stories and symbols and meaning-making. The idea that their existence was monotonous doesn't just miss the mark, it gets the picture completely backwards. Now I should be clear, the Hadza are a modern population. They have contact with the outside world, they're an incredibly valuable analog for understanding ancient foraging life, but they're not a perfect replica of every Pleistocene human group. Different environments, different climates, different ecosystems would have created different daily patterns. But the underlying structure, constant movement, goal-directed activity, social exchange, and cultural expression that appears to be deeply consistent across foraging societies. So here's the picture. Ancient daily life was physically demanding, mentally engaging, socially rich, and culturally meaningful. Every day was different. Every day had stakes. Every day required your full attention. Which raises an obvious question. If ancient life was so engaging, why are we, with all of our technology and entertainment, so bored? That question has an answer, and it's not the one most people expect. Boredom isn't laziness, it isn't a character flaw, it isn't you being ungrateful for the miracle of modern life. Boredom is a signal. Specifically, it's your brain telling you that your cognitive resources are being underutilized. Researchers describe it as a deviation from a cognitive homeostatic setpoint. Think of it like a thermostat. Your brain has an ideal level of engagement. Too little stimulation and the alarm goes off. That alarm is boredom. It's saying, hey, what you're doing right now isn't useful. Find something better. And here's what's wild. Your body treats boredom like a threat. Studies measuring physiological responses during boredom found that heart rate increases and vagal tone drops. Vagal tone is a measure of how well your parasympathetic nervous system is regulating your stress response. When it drops, you're shifting into a mild fight or flight state. Boredom doesn't just feel bad. It registers in your body as a form of stress. Your brain is literally uncomfortable. Neuroimaging shows what's happening inside your skull during this process. When you're bored, two areas light up consistently. The default mode network, which handles self-referential thinking, daydreaming, and mental time travel. And the anterior insula, which is involved in interoceptive awareness, basically your brain monitoring how your body feels. You're not just zoning out when you're bored. Your brain is actively scanning. It's searching for something, anything, a new input, a new problem, a reason to re-engage. This system is ancient, and for most of human history, it worked perfectly. Think about it. You're a forager 50,000 years ago. You've been digging tubers in the same patch for an hour. The easy ones are gone. Your returns are diminishing. That boredom signal fires. It says, move on. Try somewhere else. You walk to a new area. You find better food. The signal saved you energy and increased your caloric yield. Or you're sitting at camp and the conversation has stalled. Everyone's told their stories. The fire's burning low. Boredom pushes you to do something. Tend the fire. Repair a tool. Check the perimeter. In an environment where every action has real consequences, boredom was a survival mechanism. It pushed your attention toward novelty, toward exploration, toward the next useful thing. And the novelty it pointed you toward was real. It was a new foraging patch, an unfamiliar animal track, a different route through the landscape, a social interaction you hadn't had. The novelty was embedded in uncertainty and problem solving. It required effort, it demanded engagement, and when you pursued it, you were rewarded with genuine learning, genuine calories, genuine social connection. Now look at what happens to that same system in a modern environment. You're bored at your desk. The signal fires. Find something more engaging. So you pick up your phone. You open an app designed by hundreds of engineers whose entire job is to hijack exactly this signal. You get a hit of novelty, a new video, a new post, a new notification. The signal quiets for about 11 seconds. Then it fires again. So you scroll again. And again, and again. The novelty is real. Technically, your brain registers each new piece of content as new information. But it's passive. It requires no effort. It solves no problem. It teaches you nothing useful. And because the supply is infinite, the signal never fully resolves. You're stuck in a loop. Seek, consume, seek, consume. Your brain keeps asking for engagement, and you keep feeding it empty calories. This is where the system becomes maladaptive. The same novelty-seeking mechanism that kept your ancestors alive is now driving anxiety, stress, and social isolation. Your heart rate is elevated, your vagal tone is suppressed, you're in a low-grade stress state, not because you're in danger, but because your brain can't find meaningful engagement and won't stop looking for it. You're hyperstimulated and underengaged at the same time. That's the modern paradox, and it makes sense when you look at what our brains were shaped for. Varied physical tasks spread across the day, movement through changing landscapes, constant low-level problem solving, deep social exchange every evening, cultural expression, storytelling. A rhythm of effort and rest that kept the cognitive thermostat right where it needed to be. What our brains were not shaped for is 8 hours of monotonous screen work punctuated by bursts of algorithmically optimized digital stimulation. That's not a rhythm. That's a mismatch. So here's the takeaway. The next time you feel bored, don't treat it like something's wrong with you. Something is wrong with your environment. Boredom is the same signal it's always been. It's your brain saying, this isn't what I was built for. Find something real. The problem isn't that you get bored. The problem is that for the first time in 300,000 years, the world around you has nothing real to point you toward. Boredom isn't a personal failure, it's an ancient compass that still works. We just built a world where every direction looks the same.